What's good, YouTube? Cardfight King here, Aqua Life Baby. You already know how it is. So, um, today's video, I actually wanted to talk about a video that I saw by my boy WaveNation. Really good YouTuber, as I've said. Very entertaining videos. Does a lot of Aquaforce content, and I'll put the video that I'm referencing in the link in the description box below. But he was on a playtesting session against Gold Paladins, and he said something that kind of made me act on something that I've been pondering for quite a while. Now, where we're at with Aquaforce, before getting into that, where we're at with Aquaforce is that right now we're in the process of waiting for support and analyzing matchups. Waiting for support, we're not gonna know when we're gonna get support next. I believe until the February 5th product stream. So, praying that we get closer release date. But I know we're not getting anything till after the Bermuda comes out, and I think that they get their support in March or April. I think like end of February, March for Japan. So probably April for us, something like that. But outside of that, we're just analyzing matchups, and that means that we're just looking at like every clan that's come out and get support. Like, all right, OTT is getting their mega support. How are we going to fight against that? What do we need to watch out for? What cards on the board do we need to take out? What cards are they really going to focus on protecting? Same with Angel Feathers. Watch out for the hospital. Kind of prepare for that. Prepare for them to try and turtle up. What kind of rushdown strategies do you generally have? Shadow Paladins, how are you dealing with their retiring their retiring sort of things, especially when we start seeing their new support? Because I just saw that Blackwing Swordbreaker came out, and the Witch of Fertility, Nene's or whatever, came out just now. So they're getting a lot more utility as well. Swordbreaker actually looks really good. So with that, like I said, we're analyzing matchups. We're changing our deck slightly here and there, maybe to match what your meta is looking like, trying out new things, So that's where we're at with Aquaforce currently right now. We're not a bad deck. We're a good deck. Probably not the greatest, but limited, of course. Now, in reference to his video, which was a live commentary video, he said something that made me think about it. And it made me think that I wasn't doing Aquaforce justice by my, stoic way of thinking, so to speak. And he was said that Maelstrom is possibly the least threatening restanding Vanguard that, we've really seen. And, I would go as far to say that he's the least threatening Vanguard that we've seen, as a card that is perceived to be the main boss unit of the clan. The card that the clan support generally revives around, our main Vanguard, the boss. And I do agree with him, because in order for him to restand, it's not like Tetra Drive, for instance, where you have an automatic restand once you fulfill the certain battle conditions. His condition is relying upon on-hit pressure. It's like, hitting with the third or fourth battle. So you build around you build your turn around getting that third and fourth battle to be as threatening as possible, or as big as possible, so the opponent would generally have to take it. Now, in most cases, your opponent values the restand more than you generally value the restand, because sometimes, like, I don't want to get rid of these certain cards in my hand. Well, at the same time, it'd be nice to put another damage on board or force a little bit more shield out of my opponent's hand. So they generally value the restand more than you do. But then on the other occasions, you look at your first and second swing. Your first swing is like a rear guard, like Tidal or whatever it is, to the Vanguard or the rear guard, or it's Maelstrom if you don't have like your restanders on the board. And when you swing with Maelstrom, you can either swing boosted or unboosted. You swing unboosted, generally you're targeting a rear guard. But if you're targeting a Vanguard, it's kind of like, well, do you want to commit one card for one to pass, whatever it is. And there are a lot of the times, even with Theos giving 8k to something else, they'll take the Vanguard hit because they're like, well, you're playing Maelstrom, you're probably playing a lot of front triggers, you know, your attacks aren't really going to be exactly as threatening. And I'm somebody who believed in front triggers. You know, I do still love front triggers. Defensively, makes it easier to guard your, you know, your titles and things like that, like a multitude of units at the same time. Offensively, really pressurizing. You know, when your opponent hits a damage trigger, you know, the front trigger kind of offsets that, so every attack you throw at them, um, you know, has a chance to hit and still force some type of shielding or damage. You know, front triggers, I believe, are definitely aggressive, especially, you know, when you have a full, you know, when you have a full on board and you're pressing down, and when your opponent's at like higher damage, and instead of it being, well, you know, this attack has an extra crit on it, you know, you have to guard this number of attacks with, you know, all of them having an extra 10,000 power. And I just believe that front triggers in that regard were a lot better. But I have come across games where it's like, you know, your opponent knows you're only running front triggers, so they'll plan their attacks around how they're going to guard. They're going to no guard this attack, and if you hit a front trigger, they'll guard these attacks. And a lot of Maelstrom's play style, like I said, is getting the third and fourth battle to be as threatening as possible. And some people say, well, Naval Gazer is generally better. And I'm not going to get into a discussion of whether Naval Gazer is better than Maelstrom right now. I believe both of them have their strengths and weaknesses. But I do believe that what Maelstrom offers as far as his plus 3k ability and the, you know, knowledge of his restand provides more pressure and more advantages against different matchups than what Naval Gazer would provide. And again, I'm not saying Naval Gazer is bad at all. I just feel like Naval Gazer doesn't provide, you know, as much as what Maelstrom would do in more matchups. I think Maelstrom has more matchups better than what Naval Gazer can do at this moment in time. But that's neither here nor there. What we're getting at is that we're a rearguard centric focused deck, really, and you know, our Vanguards aren't exactly threatening, especially Maelstrom, not really a threatening card. Well, I wanted to try out crit triggers, you know, because I saw him running, I guess, a mix of crits and fronts, but I know he was running crit triggers. And when I started trying to play crit triggers in the deck, and I noticed a bit of a difference. It's not the fact that you're playing a crit triggers and that if they do take they do no guard and you hit it with a crit, then there's 2 for their mistakes. It's more like the knowledge of the crit trigger is stronger than the fact that you play crit triggers. And this is because when you swing with that second battle, let's say your opponent knows that you run crit trigger. You swing with that the second battle with Maelstrom. You know, let's see, boosted by Theo, 23k. You know, a lot of times the opponent would, you know, take it, whatever it is. But now it's like you're running crit trigger. It's like, well, I'll go from 3 to 5 if he hits a crit trigger, but then I have to guard everything else. And then at that point, they're hoping on damage get triggered, but they're at 5 damage, probably faster than they want to be. And that's if you hit it. So what it does is that even if you're not going to check it, that's going to cause them to have a little bit harder guard position. So that means that they'll probably commit some guard for this attack, but then have less guard to commit for your third and fourth battle. Or they'll have, you know, commit guard for that attack, and then when they guard your third and fourth attack, because they don't want Maelstrom to reach a stand, and then have another chance at hitting a crit trigger, they're going to have less cards in their hand, maybe for the 5th attack that goes through, or, you know, just going into the next turn in general, so that you would have probably a better defensive turn, and then your next offensive turn, they will have less cards to guard with, just based upon what they had to drop because of what they feared, you know, because of the fear of the crit trigger, the knowledge of the crit trigger. And playing more crit triggers could definitely increase that effective like deck. He's been, I've seen, a few crit triggers. I don't know how he's really playing, but he's doing that. So it's really just the knowledge of the crit trigger that matters. So I was testing that today, and a lot of the times I found that my opponents were, dropping a little bit more shield, and then at times, I felt like, hey, if I'm not really ready to commit to like a risky turn two rush or something like that, then I can swing for nine. And if I hit a crit trigger, then I got really good value. Generally, I got really good value out of that turn. And then next turn, I can kind of try to explode on them a bit. But with that, and again, this is part of us analyzing and changing certain things to place out whatever it is. I you know in me playing with the deck kind of differently than what I have been doing, especially adjusting to playing crits in the deck. I've also noticed that what the crit triggers did is that it also helped open up um, a different play that I would make. Because a lot of times I'd be like, okay, swing with Tidal, swing with Maelstrom, and then that. And now it's kind of like back then. It's like you're playing with Lambros, and it's like, okay, if I hit a crit, put the crit on Tidal, Tidal swing, restand -5, swing again with an extra crit. So it's caused me to actually be more open, especially depending on what booster I have, and it gave it the crit having the crit triggers in the deck actually opened up the deck more for me, and it gave me a little bit more of a flexibility in terms of how I want to style my attack patterns. What I'm gonna go for. And like I said, you guys know Tidal Assault's my avatar. That's my homeboy right there. That's my right hand man. And I feel like the crit trigger, just having the crit triggers in the deck, and knowledge it for myself as well, has given Tidal Assault, another tool to use, something where I can hit a crit trigger, commit the crit trigger to Tidal Assault. Tidal Assault is going to be threatening with two swings with extra power. If I hit with like Theo, I can give extra power, to Tidal Assault. Viviana. I started playing Viviana more or less because she's soul for Tidal. She's a little bit more on hit pressure. She works really well in a Riptide column. Uh, and she kind of just, replaces herself, gets us to, start digging through our deck a little bit more. But I only play her, and I've only tested her playing her out too. But the more I used her, and how I positioned her, I was just finding different ways that I could, utilize her to where she fits, smoothly in my, attack patterns and overall build. Um, so, like I said, what the crit trick has done is kind of just opened up the deck for me. And like I said, Maelstrom's, you know, one of the most least threatening resetting Vanguards, but I feel like the crit trigger gave his restand more relevance. It actually helps synergize the deck a lot more. And I am kind of right now I'm testing out a build of where I mix, not really rainbow like 4-4-4, but something more like, 5-3-4-4, something like that. And but leaning more towards the crits. Um, but the reason why I'm trying that is I still have front triggers for if I do hit them I get the front trigger bonus, but then the crit triggers as well, like I said, has just opened up playstyle, opened up different options for deck building. I feel as if it's given me a breath of fresh air and more flexibility in terms of what I'm going to do with Aqua Force. Also helps make Maelstrom a little bit more relevant. Helps in like the Shadow Powder matchup. Helps in matchups where we're not getting our rear guards a lot, and we still have a threatening, a trigger threatening more damage than what we would initially put with a front trigger and things like that. So I'm really enjoying it right now, and I think that you guys, if you guys aren't trying crits in the deck, I think you guys should try it, or at least try a mix. But and I know most people are, but I just thought about something that I was like, WaveNation, let me just go ahead and knock this out the way. Just see what I'm seeing with crit triggers. How is it? How does the deck look with crit triggers? And so far, I'm actually really liking it. I'm actually really liking this lineup I had. One of the lineups I had earlier, which was 5 crit, 3 front, 4 draw, 4 heal. I'm also trying like a 5 draw, 4 crit, 3 front type of build. But I'm still experimenting right now, but I do like the incorporation of crits. I am liking the little balance between crits and fronts, and I feel as if the synergy between them, the way you're styling is the way you, style your attacks and go after. Even hitting a front trigger and having Tidal Style restand late is still pretty decent as well. And I feel like, the trigger lineup works in favor of you still being flexible and executing what you need to execute during the majority of the game. And the reason why I'm leaning more towards the crit is because it makes Maelstrom a little bit more threatening than he is. It makes your plays a little bit more threatening because of just the knowledge of the crit trigger. And, in the event that we're playing against field destruction, when Narukami's coming up, Shadow Pound and whatnot, a crit trigger will go a lot longer, will go a lot longer towards you, winning that game than what a front would bring you, just because I believe a front trigger is not going to be as effective in those types of matchups as a crit would be. But that's the end of the video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Definitely like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to have a lot more talk videos coming out for you guys soon. Like I said, and we'll be doing, I want to do a playtesting live stream later this week. If not, I'm just going to upload some playtesting videos with live commentary as usual. And I'm also going to get you guys my Maelstrom deck profile. It's probably going to change after I give you deck profile, but I'll show you guys, what I'm working with and why, and, I know how I do my deck profiles. But that's it for your video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. You already know it is Aqua Life, baby, and we at here. Oh, and if you hit somebody with a crit trigger, we do that. 2 for your mistakes.